I thought it was just the wind, but it wasn't moving with the air. Later that night, something started walking around my tent. Not an animal. Then I moved into a house where it happened every night at exactly 2:13. We ran to a cabin in the snow, thinking we were safe. That's when it knocked. 3 slow knocks. And on a deserted highway miles from anywhere, headlights appeared behind us. But there was no driver. Because sometimes the thing you think you escaped is still following you. This happened in late spring 2017. I normally don't tell people this story because nothing about it makes sense. And honestly, I'm still not sure what I saw that evening was even real. At the time, I worked the closing shift at a small tire repair shop outside a quiet town in Oregon. The shop sat at the edge of a wooded running trail beside a narrow river. During the day, joggers and cyclists passed constantly. But after sunset, the place became completely empty. No houses nearby, no street lights near the trail, just trees, water, and wind. Most evenings were peaceful. Around 6:30 p.m., I would lock up, count the register, and leave. But one Thursday evening changed that forever. That day had been unusually quiet. Warm air moved through the trees, carrying that damp river smell. Around 6 p.m., I stepped outside behind the shop to throw away trash. That's when I noticed something down the hill, about halfway toward the riverbank. Something blue lay tangled in the grass. At first, I assumed it was garbage, maybe a tarp blown in by the wind. Stuff like that happened all the time. Still, I hated leaving trash around the property, so I started walking down the slope. The hill was steep, loose dirt sliding under my boots as I climbed down. Halfway there, I heard movement, not loud. Just a slow, dragging sound, like fabric being pulled across wet ground. I stopped. The wind wasn't strong enough to move anything, yet the blue tarp shifted slightly, almost breathing. I remember laughing nervously to myself. Probably an animal. That's what I told myself. A raccoon, maybe. But something felt wrong. The forest had gone quiet. No birds, no insects. Even the river sounded softer somehow. I took another step closer, and then the tarp lifted slightly from underneath, not blown upward, pushed from below. My stomach dropped instantly. I froze where I stood. For a moment, nothing happened. Then I heard it, a slow inhale right beneath the tarp. Someone or something breathing. I backed away immediately. Every instinct told me not to touch it. At that exact moment, a customer's truck pulled into the lot above me. The headlights flashed across the hill. Relieved, I turned around and climbed back up quickly. By the time I helped the customer and finished closing, I had completely convinced myself I imagined it. I forgot about the tarp, or maybe my brain forced me to forget. The next afternoon, 2 county officers walked into the shop. They asked if I had seen anyone near the trail the previous evening. I told them no. Then one officer asked casually, "Did you notice anything unusual near the riverbank?" And suddenly, I remembered the tarp. I told them exactly where it was. Both officers exchanged a look I still can't forget. One of them quietly said, "That's strange." I asked why. He hesitated before answering. Because when hikers checked the trail this morning, there was nothing there. No tarp, no trash, nothing disturbed. That should have been the end of it. But 3 nights later, I stayed late finishing paperwork. Around 7:15 p.m., darkness had already settled over the trees. While locking the back door, I heard something from below the hill again. The same dragging sound, slow, wet, moving upward this time, coming closer. I walked carefully to the edge and looked down. At first, I saw nothing. Then I noticed movement between the trees near the river, something standing upright, too tall, completely still, covered in what looked like dark fabric hanging from its body. It didn't walk. It didn't move normally. It simply shifted forward, like it was sliding instead of stepping. My chest tightened. Then the sound came again, a breath, deep, heavy, and clear enough that I knew it was looking directly at me. Without thinking, I stepped backward. That's when it spoke. Not loudly, not aggressively, just a whisper carried by the wind. My name, perfectly clear, right beside my ear. I ran inside the shop and locked every door. For nearly 10 minutes, something moved outside. Slow footsteps, circling the building. Metal lightly tapping the walls. Once, something pressed against the back door, hard enough to bend it inward slightly. Then suddenly, silence. I quit that job 2 weeks later. The new owner later told me something strange. Apparently workers before me had complained about hearing voices near the river after sunset. One mechanic even refused to close alone anymore. And here's the part that still bothers me most. Last year, I drove past the shop again. The hill looked exactly the same, but near the riverbank, lying in the grass, was a faded blue tarp, perfectly still, waiting. This story happened in the summer of 2019. I used to go camping alone a lot, not because I was brave, but because I liked silence. No phones, no traffic, just forest sounds and fresh air. There's a national forest about 3 hours north of where I live. It's huge, miles of untouched woodland, where you can hike all day without seeing another person. That isolation was exactly why I loved it, at least until that night. I arrived late in the afternoon. The trailhead parking lot was nearly empty, except for one old pickup truck parked near the trees. I didn't think much of it. Hunters and hikers came through all the time. I packed my gear and started hiking deeper into the forest. After about an hour, I found a small clearing beside a shallow creek. Perfect campsite. Tall pine trees surrounded the area, blocking most of the wind. The sun filtered through the branches in long, golden beams. Everything felt calm, normal. I set up my tent, started a small fire, and cooked dinner while listening to the creek flowing nearby. As night slowly fell, the forest changed. If you've ever camped deep in the woods, you know what I mean. Daytime forests feel alive. Night forests feel aware. Around 10 p.m., I climbed into my tent. The fire had burned down to glowing embers, and the only light came from the moon slipping through the trees. At first, all I heard were normal sounds. Crickets, wind, branches shifting. Then sometime after midnight, I woke up suddenly. No reason, just that strange feeling that something wasn't right. The forest was completely silent, too silent. Even the insects had stopped. I lay there listening, trying to figure out what woke me. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, slow ones, crunch, pause, crunch, moving somewhere outside my tent. I assumed it was a deer. Animals wandered through campsites all the time. But these steps sounded deliberate, heavy, like someone trying not to make noise. The footsteps circled once around my tent, then stopped near my head. I held my breath, waiting. Seconds passed, then minutes. Nothing moved. Finally, I whispered, "Hello?" No answer, just silence. I convinced myself it was nothing and slowly relaxed again. That's when something brushed against the side of the tent. Not bumped, not walked into it. Dragged from one end, slowly, to the other. The nylon fabric pressed inward slightly, like fingers sliding along it. Every hair on my body stood up. Animals don't do that. They sniff. They move quickly. They don't trace the walls of a tent. I grabbed my flashlight, but didn't turn it on yet. The footsteps started again, now behind me, then to my left, then directly in front of the entrance. Whoever or whatever it was walking in circles, studying me. After what felt like forever, curiosity and fear got the better of me. I switched on the flashlight. The beam lit up the inside of the tent, and instantly, the footsteps stopped completely. I waited another minute before slowly unzipping the tent door. The forest outside looked empty. Moonlight covered the clearing. The fire was nearly dead. Nothing moved. No animals. No people. Just trees. I stepped halfway outside and shined the light around. That's when I noticed something wrong. There were footprints in the dirt around my tent, but they weren't animal tracks. They were human. Bare feet. Large ones. And they circled my tent dozens of times. My stomach dropped because I had hiked miles into the forest. There shouldn't have been anyone else out there. I quickly zipped the tent shut again and locked it from inside. Sleep was impossible after that. For hours, I listened. Around 3 a.m., the footsteps returned, this time closer, faster, walking back and forth just inches away. Then came something worse. Breathing right outside the tent wall, slow, wet, unnaturally deep. I froze completely. The breathing moved along the side of the tent until it reached the entrance again, and then a shadow appeared. Moonlight cast it clearly through the fabric, a human-shaped figure standing there, but wrong somehow. Its head tilted too far sideways, longer arms than normal, completely still, watching. I didn't move, I didn't breathe. After maybe 30 seconds, the shadow slowly crouched down, lower, lower, until its face would have been level with mine through the fabric. Then I heard a voice, soft, almost curious. "Why are you sleeping in my place?" My blood turned cold. I never answered. I couldn't. The figure stayed there for several minutes, and suddenly stood up again. The footsteps walked away toward the trees and disappeared. The moment sunlight appeared, I packed everything without eating or even looking around properly. While leaving the clearing, I noticed something that made me walk faster. About 50 yards into the woods, there was another campsite, old, abandoned, rotting tent remains tangled in roots, and hanging from a tree nearby was a weathered warning sign placed by park rangers. It read, "Area closed, unexplained, incidents reported." I reached the parking lot, shaking. Only one vehicle remained, that same old pickup truck, but something strange caught my attention. The driver's door was open, keys still inside, covered in dust like it hadn't moved for a very long time. I reported everything later. The ranger only listened quietly, then asked one question. "Did it speak to you?" When I said yes, he sighed and said, "You're lucky it let you leave." I never camp alone anymore, because sometimes at night, when the wind moves past my bedroom window, I still hear slow footsteps circling. This happened during the winter of 2020. I had just moved into a rental house outside a small mountain town in Colorado. It wasn't exactly isolated, but close enough. The nearest neighbor lived almost half a mile away. The landlord told me the previous owners moved suddenly due to work relocation. The rent was cheap, the house was clean, and honestly, it felt like a lucky find, at least at first. The house sat at the end of a narrow gravel road surrounded by pine trees. During the day, it was beautiful. Snow covering everything. Quiet air, no city noise, but nights were different. When darkness came, the silence felt heavy, almost unnatural. The first few days were completely normal until the sounds started. The first time happened around 2:13 a.m. I remember the time clearly because my phone screen lit up when I woke. Something had slammed downstairs, not loudly enough to sound violent, but heavy enough to wake me instantly. I sat up in bed, listening. The house creaked slightly like old homes do in winter. Then came footsteps, slow ones, moving across the living room floor below me. I assumed someone had broken in. My heart started racing. I grabbed a baseball bat I kept beside the bed and quietly opened my bedroom door. The hallway upstairs was dark. Cold air drifted upward from below. I slowly walked toward the stairs. Every step felt louder than it should have. When I reached the top, the house went completely silent. No movement. Nothing. I turned on the hallway light and walked downstairs. The front door was locked, windows closed, nothing out of place. Eventually I convinced myself it had been the heater kicking on or wood settling. Old houses make noises. That's what everyone says. So I went back to sleep, but the next night it happened again, exactly at 2:13 a.m. Same sound, something moving downstairs. This time I didn't go check immediately. I stayed in bed, listening carefully. The footsteps walked slowly across the floor, stopped, then continued toward the kitchen. Cabinets opened, one after another, soft clicking sounds, like someone searching for something. That's when fear really started settling in. Because I lived alone, and no one else had a key. I forced myself downstairs again. Lights on. Nothing there. But one thing had changed. Every kitchen cabinet door was open. All of them. I checked every lock in the house, everything secure, no signs of entry. I barely slept after that. But what happened on the fourth night is what made me realize whatever was happening wasn't a break-in. It was something worse. 2:13 a.m. The sound woke me again, but this time the footsteps were upstairs, right outside my bedroom, slow, dragging slightly across the carpet. I stopped breathing. The steps moved past my door toward the bathroom, then stopped. The bathroom light turned on. I could see the glow under my door. No one else was supposed to be there. I grabbed my phone, ready to call police. Then the bathroom faucet turned on, water running steadily, followed by something I will never forget. Someone humming very quietly, a slow tune, like an old lullaby. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely move. The humming stopped suddenly. Then footsteps returned, stopping directly outside my bedroom door. The doorknob moved, slowly turning. But I had locked it earlier. The handle shook once, twice, then stopped, and a voice whispered through the door, soft, almost confused. "Why are you in my room?" I didn't answer. Minutes passed. Eventually, the footsteps walked away again. The bathroom light switched off. Silence returned. I didn't open the door until sunrise, and when I did, the hallway floor was wet. Footprints. Bare footprints, leading from the bathroom straight to my bedroom door and stopping there. I called the landlord immediately. He sounded uncomfortable when I explained everything, too uncomfortable. After a long pause, he finally admitted something. The previous tenant had reported hearing someone inside the house at night, too. They claimed doors open by themselves, lights turning on, water running. They moved out within a month. But here's what truly terrified me. While cleaning the basement later that day, I found something hidden behind old storage shelves. A small, sealed, crawl space door. Painted shut from the outside. When I forced it open, cold air rushed out. Inside was a narrow dirt chamber beneath the house, and in the dust were bedding materials, old blankets, food wrappers, empty water bottles. Someone or something had been staying there, watching the house from underneath. I moved out that same week. Months later, I drove past the property again. The house was empty, for rent sign still outside. But as I slowed near the driveway, I saw movement behind the upstairs window, a figure standing inside, watching the road. The house officially had no tenants. I checked later, still vacant. Sometimes I wake up now at exactly 2:13 a.m. for no reason. And every time, for a few seconds, I feel certain of one thing. Whatever lived in that house never thought I was the resident. It thought I was the intruder. This is the story that finally convinced me that some places should stay abandoned. It happened in January of 2021. My wife and I decided to spend a week at my family's winter cabin in northern Minnesota. I had been going there since childhood. The cabin sat beside a frozen lake surrounded by miles of forest. No town nearby, no cell service, just snow, trees, and silence. Normally, that isolation felt peaceful. That winter, it felt wrong from the moment we arrived. The drive-in was already strange. Snow covered the road completely, and fresh snowfall had erased most tracks. But halfway across the frozen causeway leading toward the cabin, my wife pointed toward the lake. "There's someone out there." About 200 yards away stood a small wooden ice fishing shack. Nothing unusual, except for one thing. There were footprints leading to it, but none leading away, just a single trail walking onto the lake, stopping at the shack. I slowed the truck. The shack door slowly moved back and forth in the wind, open, no one inside that we could see. The lake stretched empty in every direction. We kept driving. Neither of us mentioned it again. When we reached the cabin, something else immediately felt off. The front door was slightly open, just an inch. Snow had blown inside across the floor. That shouldn't have been possible. The cabin had been locked since autumn. I assumed maybe my uncle forgot to secure it before winter. Still, my stomach tightened as I pushed the door open. Cold air rushed out. Inside, everything looked mostly normal. Furniture untouched, fireplace empty, but there were wet footprints on the wooden floor. Bare, human footprints. Fresh ones. My wife asked quietly, "Did someone come here before us?" I didn't answer because I already knew the truth. No vehicle tracks outside, no snowmobile marks, nothing. Whoever made those prints had arrived on foot through deep winter forest, barefoot. We searched the cabin together, every room empty, no stolen items, no signs of forced entry. Eventually, we convinced ourselves maybe an ice fisherman had broken in for warmth and left earlier. It didn't fully make sense, but it was easier to believe. So we started a fire and unpacked. Night fell quickly, and with it came the silence. Real winter silence. The kind that presses against your ears. Around 11 p.m., while sitting near the fireplace, we heard something outside. Footsteps, crunching slowly through snow, circling the cabin. My wife looked at me immediately. "You hear that too?" I nodded. The steps moved past the window, paused, then continued towards the back wall. Too heavy for an animal, too slow for someone just passing by. Whoever it was walking around us. I grabbed a flashlight and opened the front door. Cold air hit instantly. The snow outside reflected moonlight brightly, but no one was there. Just fresh footprints forming in the snow, right in front of us, one after another, appearing, as if invisible feet were stepping forward toward the door. I slammed it shut immediately, locked it. Neither of us spoke for several minutes. The footsteps continued outside for nearly an hour, sometimes near the walls, sometimes directly above us on the roof. Heavy dragging sounds moved across the cabin ceiling. At one point, something knocked 3 times on the front door. Slow, intentional. We didn't open it. Eventually, the sounds stopped. Exhausted, we went to bed. But sometime during the night, I woke up suddenly. The bedroom door was open. I always close doors when I sleep. The hallway light was on, and I could hear breathing inside the cabin, not outside anymore. Inside, I sat up slowly. The breathing came from the living room, deep, wet, almost struggling. My wife whispered, "Do you hear that?" Before I could answer, something walked past our bedroom doorway. A shadow crossed the hall, tall, too thin, moving unnaturally slow, bare footsteps against wood, heading toward the kitchen. I jumped out of bed and turned on every light in the cabin. The breathing stopped instantly. We searched everywhere again. Nothing. Doors still locked. Windows frozen shut. But the kitchen floor was covered in melting snow. Fresh footprints leading from the front door into the house and stopping beside our bedroom. We didn't sleep after that. At sunrise, we packed everything and left immediately. While driving away across the frozen lake, I looked back once. The ice fishing shack door was closed now, completely shut, and beside it stood a figure watching our truck leave. Perfectly still. We thought the nightmare ended there. It didn't. 3 nights after returning home, our security camera alerted us at 2:47 a.m. Movement at our front porch. I opened the live feed expecting an animal. Instead, I saw wet footprints forming across the porch, one after another, moving toward the door. No person visible, just footsteps appearing, stopping right outside. The camera audio picked something up seconds later. Slow breathing, followed by a faint knock, 3 times, the exact same way. We moved houses 6 months later, but sometimes during winter nights, when snow falls heavily outside, I wake up convinced someone is standing just beyond the door, waiting for us to let it in again. Because deep down, I think whatever was in that cabin didn't want us there. It wanted to come with us, and I'm not entirely sure that it didn't. This is the last story I ever tell people when the topic of unexplained experiences comes up, because unlike the others, I never truly escaped this one. And even now, years later, I still avoid driving at night whenever I can. This happened in October 2018. My girlfriend and I were returning home from a weekend trip across Arizona. It was supposed to be a normal 6-hour drive, clear weather, empty highways, nothing unusual. We left late, around 9 p.m. That was our first mistake. If you've ever driven long desert highways at night, you understand how empty they feel. Miles of darkness, no buildings, no lights, just road stretching endlessly into blackness. Around midnight, GPS directed us onto a smaller highway to save time. At first, it seemed normal. 2 lanes, smooth pavement. But after about 20 minutes, something strange happened. We stopped seeing other cars. Not fewer cars. None. No headlights behind us. No vehicles coming the opposite direction. Complete isolation. Then our phone signal disappeared. Both phones at the exact same moment. The GPS map froze, but the navigation voice kept repeating, "Continue straight." So we did. Another 10 minutes passed. The road began feeling wrong. I can't explain it properly. The surroundings looked identical no matter how far we drove. Same rock formations, same bent road sign, same dead tree beside the highway. We passed it once, then again, then a third time. My girlfriend finally noticed too. Didn't we already pass that sign? I laughed nervously, said it probably just looked similar. But deep down, I knew she was right. The temperature inside the car suddenly dropped. Our breath became faintly visible. Outside, temperature should have been warm desert air. Instead, frost slowly formed along the windshield edges. That's when headlights appeared behind us. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a single car followed at a distance. Relief washed over me at first. Finally, another driver. But something felt off immediately. The headlights never changed distance. No matter how fast or slow I drove, they stayed exactly the same distance behind us, perfectly fixed, like part of the road itself. After several minutes, the car flashed its high beams once, then again. My girlfriend whispered, "Don't stop." I hadn't even suggested stopping, but somehow the thought had already crossed my mind, almost like the road wanted us to pull over. The GPS screen suddenly turned back on, but instead of a map, it showed only a straight line. No towns, no exits, just endless road. Then the voice changed. Same system voice, but distorted, slower. "You have arrived." At that exact moment, the car behind us accelerated, fast, closing the distance instantly. Its headlights filled our mirrors. I expected it to pass us. It didn't. It matched our speed again, right behind us now. So close, I couldn't see the driver. Only darkness inside the vehicle. No interior light, no visible person. My girlfriend started crying quietly. That's when we noticed something worse. There were no tire sounds anymore. Not from us, not from them. The car felt like it was gliding. The road stretched endlessly ahead, but the headlights illuminated nothing beyond a short distance. Like the world stopped existing past that point. Then the radio turned on by itself. Static filled the car, and beneath the static, voices, dozens of overlapping whispers, all speaking at once, none understandable, except one sentence repeating clearly, over and over. "Turn around." I slammed the accelerator. The speedometer climbed past 90 mph. The following car stayed perfectly behind us, unmoving, unavoidable. Then, suddenly, its headlights shut off. Complete darkness behind us. I checked the mirror again. The car was gone. Instantly. No turn-off roads, no sound, just empty highway again. Seconds later, normal traffic appeared ahead. Passing cars, streetlights in the distance. Phone signal returned. GPS corrected itself. According to the map, we had skipped nearly 2 hours of driving, but the clock showed only 15 minutes past. We stopped at a gas station, shaking. I asked the cashier if there was another highway nearby matching the one we described. He stared at us strangely, then said something I still think about. "There hasn't been a road there for years." He explained an old highway used to run through that desert decades ago. closed after repeated accidents and disappearances, most of it removed. Nature reclaimed the area. We checked our dash camera later. The recording showed normal driving at first, then static. 15 full minutes of corrupted footage. At the very end, one clear frame appeared, captured just before signal returned. Behind our car was another vehicle, extremely close, but there was no driver inside. Only darkness and something sitting in the passenger seat, facing directly toward our camera. Since that night, sometimes when driving late, my GPS glitches briefly, screen flickers, route disappears, and for a split second, before correcting itself, one message appears. Continue straight, even when I'm already home, even when I'm not driving anywhere. And every time it happens, I get the same horrible feeling, like somewhere out there, that road is still waiting, and someday I might accidentally find it again.